No nanny lasted more than 3 days with the Hawthorne twins, until she walked in, calm in the chaos. One storm, one impossible rescue, and the children who never trusted anyone began to cling to her. But neither she nor their guarded millionaire father knew the storm had only just begun. Before we dive into this unforgettable journey, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? If stories about love, sacrifice, and second chances speak to your heart, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we're bringing you another powerful story you won't want to miss. Emily Rivera adjusted the strap of her worn leather bag and looked up at the towering black gates of the Hawthorne estate. They loomed like the entrance to another world, one where marble floors and gold-trimmed banisters whispered of wealth far beyond her reach. The brisk morning air carried the faint scent of roses from the manicured gardens, but it did little to steady the pounding of her heart. She had been turned away from too many jobs this month, and she couldn't afford for this one to slip through her fingers. She pressed the intercom button. "Emily Rivera, here for the nanny position," she said, trying to keep her voice from trembling. There was a pause before a clipped male voice replied, "Proceed to the main house." The gate creaked open slowly, like it was reluctant to let her in. The driveway stretched ahead like a private road, lined with perfectly symmetrical hedges. A sleek black car was parked outside the front steps, its chrome gleaming in the pale sunlight. The front door, tall, arched, and made of dark mahogany, opened before she could knock. A woman in a crisp gray uniform, hair pulled into a severe bun, gave her a once-overs that made Emily instinctively tug at the sleeves of her second-hand blazer. "This way," the woman said, not unkindly, but without warmth. Emily followed her into a grand foyer where the ceiling soared 2 stories high. A chandelier glittered overhead, and the air smelled faintly of lemon polish. At the far end of the marble hall stood a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, Adrian Hawthorne looked exactly as Emily had imagined from the brief research she'd done. Sharp, intimidating, and completely untouchable. His dark hair was perfectly combed, his posture a study in control. His gaze swept over her once, unreadable. "Miss Rivera." But hope. She forced herself to meet his eyes, though something about the sheer weight of his presence made it tempting to look away. "Let's be clear," he began, his voice low and even. "This position has a reputation. You are the 12th candidate in less than a year. None lasted more than 3 days. The record, for what it's worth, is 72 hours. Emily clasped her hands to hide the way her fingers fidgeted. "May I ask why?" His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You'll find out soon enough." Before she could respond, a loud thud echoed from somewhere upstairs, followed by the unmistakable sound of giggling. 2 voices, quick and conspiratorial. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Maxia?" he called, his tone carrying a warning that suggested he'd used it often. The giggling stopped for half a second. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps on the grand staircase. They appeared together, a boy and girl of about 7, mirror images with tousled dark hair and bright, sharp eyes. Both wore mischievous smirks that told Emily they had been caught in the middle of something, but weren't the least bit sorry. "Is Miss Rivera," Adrian said. "She might be your new nanny." Mia tilted her head, eyes narrowing in mock suspicion. "Might be?" "Depends," Adrian replied, "on whether she runs screaming before lunch." Max grinned. "We can make that happen." Emily fought to keep her expression neutral. "Hello, Max." "Hello, Mia. I'm Emily." The twins exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them, and then they descended the rest of the stairs together. Mia came to stand directly in front of Emily, looking her up and down. "Your shoes are scuffed," she observed. Emily smiled faintly. "They're my lucky pair. They've gotten me through a lot." Max's gaze flicked to her bag. "What's in there? Snacks? Toys? A helmet?" "Would I need a helmet?" Emily asked, feigning curiosity. He smirked. "If you last more than a day, yeah." From the corner of her eye, Emily saw Adrian watching her closely, as though assessing how she'd handle the opening volley. She kept her tone light. "Good thing I'm fast on my feet." It began within minutes. While Adrian stepped away to take a call, the twins led her into the living room. a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows and pale cream furniture. Mia pointed toward the couch. "Could you grab that cushion for me?" As soon as Emily picked it up, a loud pop echoed beneath her. "A whoopee cushion," Mia burst out laughing. Mac's contribution came next, a small bucket perched precariously on top of the doorframe to the sunroom. When Emily walked through, it tipped, and a cascade of soft, colorful pom-poms rained down on her head. She froze in place, then slowly brushed a pom-pom off her shoulder. "You missed a spot," she said calmly, plucking one from her hair and tossing it gently at Max. He looked startled, then laughed despite himself. Mia's eyes lit with something other than mischief. Interest, maybe. By the time Adrian returned, the twins were sprawled on the rug, showing Emily how to build a lopsided tower out of oversized foam blocks. He stopped in the doorway, brows lifting slightly at the sight. "You're still here," he said, his tone unreadable. Emily glanced up at him. "Shouldn't I be?" He studied her for a moment before speaking. "We'll start on a trial basis, 1 week, if you last that long." "Deal," she said, though the weight of his gaze told her this was as much a challenge as it was an offer. Emily followed the twins to the kitchen, where a long marble island separated them from a row of gleaming stainless steel appliances. The air smelled faintly of vanilla, as if someone had recently baked. Mia climbed onto one of the tall stools, swinging her legs idly, while Max rummaged through a drawer. "What are you looking for?" Emily asked, leaning on the counter. "Spoon," Max replied, holding one up like a weapon. "For science." Mia grinned. "He means launching grapes." Before Emily could protest, Max placed a grape on the spoon, pressed the handle against the edge of the counter, and flicked it. The grape sailed through the air, landing somewhere behind the refrigerator with a muted thud. Mia giggled. "Impressive trajectory," Emily said evenly. "But that grape's going to smell in a few days. Who's cleaning it up?" The twins exchanged a look. It wasn't the reaction they'd expected. Usually nannies scolded them or panicked them. Emily, however, simply folded her arms and waited. "Fine," Max muttered, sliding off his stool to retrieve the grape. Mia leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "You're not like the others." "Eh?" Emily asked. "You didn't yell," Mia said simply. Emily smiled. "Yelling rarely fixes anything." She noticed Adrian had reappeared in the doorway, his phone gone. He'd clearly caught the exchange, though his expression gave nothing away. "Max? Mia?" "Homework." The twins groaned in unison. Adrian's gaze flicked to Emily. "You can observe, but don't intervene. They know the routine." As the children reluctantly fetched their books from a side cabinet, Emily stood quietly, watching. Max sprawled in his chair, pencil dangling from his fingers. Mia twirled her hair instead of opening her workbook. Within minutes, the bickering began. "You're breathing too loud," Mia snapped. "You're taking up all the space," Max shot back. Emily let it play out for a few moments, then crouched between them. "How about a deal? You each get half the table. Stay in your lane, finish your work, and I'll read you 1 chapter of a story before bed tonight." Both looked at her like she'd just proposed something outrageous. "A story?" Max repeated. Emily said. "The kind with dragons and secret tunnels?" Mia's eyes flicked toward Adrian, who was watching from the corner with that same unreadable expression. "Can we, Daddy?" Adrian hesitated, then gave a short nod. "As long as your work is done." To Emily's quiet surprise, the twins settled into their assignments without further complaint. By early evening, the housekeeper, Mrs. Langford, appeared to prepare dinner. She moved with precise efficiency, setting the table with polished silverware. Emily noticed she didn't speak much to the children, offering only curt instructions like, "Hands washed," and "Sit properly." So during the meal, Adrian kept the conversation to a minimum, asking short, practical questions. "Did you feed the fish, or did you feed the fish?" The twins answered in monosyllables. Emily felt the weight of the silence between them, like an invisible wall. After dinner, Adrian excused himself for a video conference, leaving Emily to guide the twins upstairs. She could feel their eyes on her as they climbed the grand staircase, as if they were still deciding whether to let her in or keep her at arm's length. In the playroom, she pulled a worn paperback from her bag. "This one's my favorite," she said, holding up the cover. A dragon curling protectively around a sleeping child. Max and Mia flopped onto the rug, leaning against beanbags. Emily began to read, her voice soft but animated, weaving the world of the story around them. She watched as their restless energy gave way to stillness, their eyes following every word. When the chapter ended, Mia let out a small sigh. "Another?" Emily smiled. "Tomorrow. Deals are deals." She tucked them into their separate beds, dimming the lights. As she stepped into the hallway, she caught sight of Adrian standing at the far end, hands in his pockets. She wondered how long he had been there. "You got them to bed early," he said. "We're tired," she replied. His gaze held hers for a moment. "We'll see if you make it today, too." Emily didn't flinch. "I plan on making it today 8. One corner of his mouth lifted in something close to amusement before he turned away. Back in her small guest room, at the far wing of the house, Emily sat on the edge of the bed. Her mind replayed the day, the pranks, the negotiations, the silent dinner, and Adrian's lingering look. She knew this job would be a test of patience, resilience, and maybe something more. She also knew one thing for certain: she wasn't going to be another name on the long list of nannies who had failed. Emily woke to the soft chime of a grandfather clock echoing down the hall. The sun had barely crested over the hills, spilling pale light across the guest room. She dressed quickly and made her way toward the kitchen, only to find Mrs. Langford already there, arranging a silver tray with precise care. "You're up early," Emily said. Mrs. Langford didn't look up. "Breakfast is served promptly at 7. The twins eat at the kitchen table. Mr. Hawthorne prefers his coffee in the study." Emily nodded, filing it away. "Is there a written schedule?" The housekeeper handed her a thick, laminated packet. "The house rules. Read them. Follow them. You might last longer that way." Emily flipped through the pages as she sipped a glass of water. The list was overwhelming. Fixed wake-up times. Meals at exact hours. No sweets unless pre-approved. 2 hours of study after school before any recreation. No physical contact unless necessary for safety. Absolutely no entry into the West Wing. By the time the twins padded into the kitchen in matching navy pajamas, Emily felt like she'd been handed a manual for managing prisoners, not children. Max slouched into a chair and immediately reached for the toast. Mrs. Langford's sharp look had him pulling his hand back until Emily slid the plate toward him herself. Mia sat primly, swinging her legs, her expression a careful mask. "Morning," Emily said, placing orange juice in front of them. "Morning," they echoed, almost mechanically. It struck Emily then, the rules might keep the house running, but they also kept the children walled in. Their movements were measured, their responses practiced. After breakfast, she followed them to the study room, a spotless space with 2 desks and a tall bookshelf. A tutor arrived precisely at 8 and began drilling them in math and reading comprehension. Emily sat in the corner, observing. The twins answered correctly, but without spark, their eyes glazing over after the first hour. At 10, Mrs. Langford announced it was time for piano practice. The twins obeyed, though Max's fingers deliberately hit a few wrong keys. Mia caught Emily's eye and gave the faintest smile, as if inviting her to share in the joke. By midday, Emily had memorized the rhythm of the house. Meals, lessons, short supervised breaks, more lessons, dinner, bed. The routine was airtight, with no room for spontaneity. When Adrian appeared briefly in the afternoon, it was to review the twins' progress reports from the tutor and piano instructor. "Satisfactory," he said after scanning the papers. "Keep it that way." Emily noticed the twins straightening under his gaze, as though bracing for critique. She also noticed how his praise, mild as it was, still mattered to them. After Adrian left for a meeting, Emily wandered to the playroom where the twins were building a half-hearted Lego structure. "You know," she said casually, "I once built a castle with a secret passage for my little brother." Max perked up. "A secret passage?" Yet took 3 days. Want me to show you how? The twins exchanged a glance, then nodded. For the next hour, the three of them built side by side. Emily didn't direct, she suggested, laughed when pieces collapsed, and praised their odd, creative additions. By the end, the castle had a crooked tower, a hidden door, and a dragon perched on top. When Mrs. Langford returned, she frowned. It's past study time. Emily met her gaze evenly. We're exercising creativity. I'll have them back on schedule in 10 minutes. That night, after the usual dinner and reading hour, Emily took a risk. She gathered the twins in the playroom and pulled a deck of illustrated cards from her bag. Ever played storytelling cards? Max shook his head. Mia leaned closer. How does it work? Each card has a picture, Emily explained. We take turns adding to a story based on the cards we draw. It can be silly, scary, or magical. Your choice. At first, the twins were hesitant, but soon they were giggling over ridiculous plot twists involving a pirate hamster and a flying sandwich. Emily noticed how their shoulders relaxed, how their eyes lit up in a way she hadn't seen all day. By the time she tucked them into bed, they were yawning but smiling. Tomorrow, can we play again? Mia asked. Emily hesitated, aware of the no unscheduled games rule. Then she nodded. Yes, tomorrow. As she left their room, she passed the security camera mounted in the hallway. A small red light blinked. She wondered if Adrian was watching. Fewer deliberate errors. Notes. Children requested same reader at bedtime. Laughter heard during break period. Mia volunteered to clear plates without prompting. Emily didn't point any of this out. She simply kept threading warmth into the day's rigid fabric. She made sure the storytelling game began the moment the study alarm rang, so no one could claim she'd stolen time. She introduced a question jar, letting the twins dictate their thoughts while she wrote them down. The goal was curiosity, not perfect penmanship. At first, the questions were, why does toast pop? Where does rain wait? By Friday, Mia asked, why do people make rules that make us sad? And Max asked, how long does a promise last? Emily folded both slips of paper like they were treasures. That afternoon, the tutor handed Adrian the weekly report. He scanned it as he walked. Compliance improved, focus improved, mood. He stopped. Mood engaged. It was underlined twice. Miss Rivera has a calming influence, the tutor said. They resist less when they feel seen. Adrian's jaw relaxed slightly. We'll see if it lasts. He found Emily with the twins on the back steps, watching ladybugs climb out of a puddle. The twins didn't notice him. Emily did, but she let the moment continue. Max lifted a bug to dry stone and whispered encouragement. Mia tucked a leaf beside another bug like a blanket. 5 minutes, Adrian said. 5 minutes, Emily echoed, and the twins nodded. It felt more like trust than an order. That night, she spread a new sheet of paper on the table. Let's write the rules we actually need, she told them. Max blurted, no broccoli. Mia countered with, more stories. Emily smiled. Try again. They settled on 4, be kind, tell the truth, ask for help, try again tomorrow. Emily wrote them neatly and taped the list inside a cabinet door, not hidden, not displayed, just waiting where hands would reach for plates. By the week's end, even Mrs. Langford softened. One rainy afternoon, she poured 3 small hot chocolates and muttered, for morale. Max declared it a science experiment about melting. On Saturday, Adrian asked for an update. Emily kept her tone even. They're sleeping better. They work faster when praised for something specific. They laugh more if allowed a few minutes of silliness before piano. Is this sustainable? If you want it to be. He glanced toward the twins, who were cheerfully debating whether a dragon could fit through a chimney. Temporary, he murmured. Novelty fades, Emily agreed, but trust stays. That night, Adrian reviewed camera clips, a hand steadying a cup, a gasp over a card game, 2 heads bent over a map. He closed the laptop slowly. On Sunday evening, Emily drew a hopscotch grid on the garden stones. One rule, she said, if you miss, you laugh. Max missed and laughed. Mia missed, pretended she hadn't, then laughed too. Adrian appeared at the path's end, briefcase in hand. The twins called, "Daddy, watch." He set the case down and watched. Later, in his study, he repeated, "Temporary." But the word felt thin. The report read, "Engaged, engaged, engaged." His note in the margin, "Keep observing." Down the hall, Emily slipped a new page into the Our Ideas folder. A house with warm light in the windows, and 2 children walking in without hesitation. Beneath it, she wrote, "Tomorrow is a place too." The sky had been a perfect blue that morning, the kind that made the hawthorn gardens glow like something out of a painting. Max and Mia had been restless during their lessons, drumming pencils on the desk, leaning toward the windows, their eyes tracking the movement of clouds. Emily noticed it, but she had been careful not to give them too much freedom all at once. Small steps, she'd learned, were less likely to be taken away. When the last lesson ended, she gave them a choice: the library for quiet reading or the garden for a short walk. She didn't miss the way their eyes lit up. "Garden," they chorused, barely waiting for her to nod before racing toward the back door. Emily followed at a steady pace, keeping their giggles in sight as they darted across the neatly clipped lawn. The hawthorn garden wasn't just a stretch of grass. It was a sprawling maze of hedges, fountains, and winding stone paths. It had been designed to impress guests and to entertain the children when their mother had still been alive. Emily had heard Mrs. Langford mention the maze once, her voice tight, saying it hadn't been used much in recent years. The air smelled faintly of rain, but the sun still shone, so Emily thought nothing of it. She let the twins run ahead, their laughter bouncing off the hedges. Max called back, "Bet I can find the fountain first." Mia shot him a look and bolted down a different path, determined to beat him. Emily stayed near the entrance, listening for their voices. She knew the garden's twists could be confusing for small children, but they had never gone far before. She was about to follow Mia's path when she felt the first cold drop on her cheek, then another. She looked up. The sky had changed in minutes. Thick, bruised clouds rolled in fast, swallowing the sunlight. A distant rumble echoed, and then the rain came, sudden and heavy, drenching the stone path in seconds. Emily's heart tightened. "Max? Mia!" she called, her voice carrying over the sound of the rain. No answer. She tried again, louder. Still nothing. The garden maze was beautiful in good weather, but in a storm, the high hedges trapped the damp air, and the paths turned slick. She stepped into the maze, her shoes already soaked through, scanning each turn. The rain blurred her vision, plastering her hair to her face. "Mac!" "Mia!" Her voice sharpened with urgency now. A gust of wind bent the hedge leaves, sending a spray of water into her eyes. Somewhere ahead, she thought she heard a faint cry, muffled by the downpour. She quickened her pace, following the sound. The ground squelched under her steps. She turned left, then right, nearly slipping on the slick stones. Another whimper, closer this time. She rounded a corner and saw them at last. The twins stood huddled together near the base of a marble fountain, their clothes clinging to their small frames, hair dripping into their eyes. Mia's lip trembled. Max's arms were around her, but his own shoulders shook. "Sweethearts," Emily breathed, hurrying forward. She crouched in front of them, her coat already half soaked, and opened it wide. "Come on, both of you." Mia hesitated only a second before stepping into her arms. Max followed, pressing close as she wrapped the coat around them. Their shivering was immediate against her skin. "It's all right, I've got you," she murmured, adjusting her grip so she could lift Mia while keeping Max close to her side. The weight and awkwardness didn't matter. She pulled the coat tighter, shielding them from the wind as best she could, and began the trek back through the maze. Each turn felt longer than before. The rain didn't let up. It seemed to fall harder, cold needles against her neck. Max's small hand clung to the fabric of her sleeve. Mia's face was pressed against her collarbone, her breath warm but shaky. Emily kept talking, even if they barely heard her over the storm. "You're safe. Just a little further. We'll be warm soon. The fire will be going, and Mrs. Langford will have blankets." She didn't know if she was reassuring them or herself. Finally, the hedges thinned, and the gray outline of the mansion appeared through the rain. Emily's shoes slipped once on the slick stone, but she tightened her hold and steadied herself. The back terrace came into view, and with it, Mrs. Langford standing under the overhang, eyes wide. "Oh, heavens!" she cried, rushing forward as Emily climbed the steps. "Get them inside, quick!" Emily moved past her, heading straight for the sitting room with the fireplace. The room was dim, the heavy curtains drawn against the storm outside. She set Mia down gently on the sofa and helped Max out of his soaked sweater. Mrs. Langford appeared with thick blankets. Emily wrapped them around each twin, tucking the edges in snugly. Then she crouched between them, rubbing their arms through the fabric to bring back warmth. "It's all right," she said softly. "You're safe now, just listen to the fire." The flames crackled, filling the silence between their sniffles. Gradually, their shivers eased. Max leaned against her side. Mia's small hand found hers under the blanket. Emily didn't notice how soaked she still was until a droplet slid down her neck. Her coat clung to her arms, her hair heavy with water. She didn't care. The twins were warm, and that was all that mattered. The storm rattled against the tall windows, the wind carrying occasional bursts of rain through the narrow openings in the terrace doors. Emily sat on the rug now, both twins wrapped in blankets on either side of her, their cheeks slowly regaining color. The firelight painted a warm glow on their faces, making the damp strands of hair around their temples shimmer. "You were scared, huh?" she asked quietly, glancing between them. Max's eyes flickered toward Mia before he gave a reluctant nod. "The rain came too fast. We couldn't find the way out." Mia's voice was even smaller. "I thought maybe we'd be stuck." Emily brushed a wet curl from her forehead. "You weren't stuck. Not while I was looking for you." They didn't answer, but she felt their bodies lean into her, a silent acceptance of her words. It was the kind of trust that didn't come from promises, but from proving, in the moment, that you'd show up when it counted. Mrs. Langford returned with 2 mugs of warm milk, steam curling into the air. "Drink slowly," she instructed. "Don't scald your tongues." Emily took 1 mug in each hand, passing them to the twins. Max blew on his, watching the ripples. Mia cupped hers with both hands, her blanket slipping from her shoulders until Emily adjusted it. The sitting room door creaked open behind them. Emily turned her head just enough to see Adrian Hawthorne step in, his presence filling the space before he spoke a word. He was still in his suit from the meeting, but the rain had left faint, damp streaks across his shoulders, as though he'd walked through the edge of the storm to get inside. His eyes swept the room, the twins bundled by the fire, Emily kneeling between them, her clothes clinging from the rain. "What happened?" His voice was calm, but there was a sharper undertone, like a blade hidden in silk. Mrs. Langford answered before Emily could. "The children were caught in the garden maze when the storm broke. Miss Rivera brought them in." Adrian's gaze shifted to her then, holding steady. There was no quick judgment this time, no visible disapproval. Just a searching look that made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. "Fine now," Emily said simply, meeting his eyes without flinching. Max looked up at his father, the corner of his mouth twitching in a way that was almost an attempt at reassurance. "She found us," he said, "in the rain." For a moment, the only sound was the fire and the storm outside. Then Adrian crossed the room, stopping a few feet away. His gaze lingered on the twins, then on the way they leaned toward Emily. "You should change," he said finally, his voice low. "You'll catch cold." Emily nodded but didn't move yet. "I'll go, once they're warm enough." Something flickered in his eyes, not annoyance, but something more difficult to read. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod, then turned to the twins. "Finish your milk," he told them, his tone softer than before. Mrs. Langford excused herself, muttering about fresh towels. The twins sipped their milk again, the earlier tension slowly melting from their shoulders. When Adrian stepped back toward the door, Emily thought he might leave without another word, but just before he crossed the threshold, he looked over his shoulder. His voice was quiet enough that it almost got lost in the crackle of the fire. "Thank you, Miss Rivera." It wasn't elaborate, and it wasn't accompanied by a smile, but it was the first time he'd said the words to her. After he left, Mia tilted her head toward Emily. "Does that mean he likes you now?" Emily laughed softly, though there was a warmth in her chest she didn't want to examine too closely. "It means he's glad you're safe. And that's enough for now." Later, after the twins had changed into dry pajamas and drifted into sleep, Emily stood in the dim hallway outside their rooms. Her own hair was still damp, her clothes replaced by a simple sweater and leggings. She could hear the storm easing, the rain softening to a steady patter. She walked quietly toward the back of the house, intending to return to her quarters, but paused when she caught sight of light spilling from the open study door. Inside, Adrian stood by the window, one hand resting against the frame, watching the rain. His jacket was gone, his tie loosened. The faint reflection of the fire in the study fireplace flickered over his profile, softening the hard lines she had come to associate with him. For a second, she considered walking past, but then his voice reached her, low but clear. "You didn't have to go into the maze yourself." Emily leaned against the doorframe. They were scared. "I wasn't going to leave them there." He didn't turn right away, but when he did, his eyes held something quieter than their usual sharpness. "Most would have called for the staff." "Maybe," she said, "but most don't last 3 days here, remember?" A taste of a smile touched his mouth before disappearing again. He nodded once, almost to himself, and looked back out at the rain. "Good night, Miss Rivera." She left him there, knowing she'd seen something rare. A moment where the walls didn't seem quite so impenetrable. And though he would never admit it aloud, Adrian Hawthorne had begun to see her differently. The image of her, drenched and wrapped around his children in front of the fire, was not one he would forget. It was unusual for Adrian Hawthorne to personally summon her. Most of his messages came through Mrs. Langford or the household staff, clipped and efficient. That evening, however, a knock came at her door, and the butler stood there in his black jacket, posture impeccable. "Mr. Hawthorne requests your presence in the dining room," he said. "With the children?" Emily blinked. "Is something wrong?" "Oh, ma'am. He asked that you join them for dinner." It was a simple invitation, but it carried a weight she didn't miss. Adrian had never eaten with her present, unless it was a brief exchange over the twins' breakfast. Dinner was his private time, his sanctuary from the chaos of the day. When she entered the dining room, the long polished table was already set, the chandeliers glowing above, throwing light over gleaming silverware. The twins were in their seats, Max kicking his heels under the table, Mia swinging hers slowly. Adrian sat at the head, his posture perfectly upright, a linen napkin folded neatly on his lap. His eyes flicked to her as she approached. "Ms. Rivera, please, sit." She hesitated only briefly before taking the seat beside Mia, across from Max. The place setting in front of her looked as though it belonged in a formal restaurant. Polished silver, crystal water glass, a folded napkin in a precise triangle. "Dad, can I show her?" Mia asked, her voice bright with excitement. He asked politely. "You eat?" Adrian said, though his tone was less severe than usual. Dinner began with roasted chicken, steamed vegetables, and warm bread. The twins chatted between bites, telling Emily about their day at the tutoring room, about how they'd been working on a special project together. She listened, asking questions, smiling when Max got animated enough to wave his fork around. Adrian remained mostly quiet, cutting his food with deliberate precision, but she caught him glancing at her more than once. Not coldly, not suspiciously, more as though he were trying to read something in her face. Halfway through the meal, Mia wriggled in her chair and finally couldn't hold it in any longer. "Can we please show her now?" Adrian set down his knife and fork. "Fine, go ahead." Max reached under the table, pulling out a folded sheet of paper. They spread it flat in front of Emily. It was a drawing done in bold strokes of colored pencil, the four of them standing in the garden. The twins were in the middle, holding hands. On one side was Emily, smiling, a wide-brimmed hat shading her face. On the other was Adrian, taller, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it in real life. Above them, the sky was bright and filled with stylized sunshine. Emily's throat tightened. "This is beautiful," she said, looking between them. "You drew all of us together." Max grinned. Yeah, because you're part of it now. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes at that, but he said nothing. He only studied the picture for a moment longer before returning to his plate. Dinner moved on, though the atmosphere had shifted. The twins were buoyant, their laughter filling the space in a way that seemed to chip at the house's usual formality. Emily found herself relaxing, despite the formality of the table setting, slipping into the rhythm of conversation. When dessert arrived, small slices of lemon tart, Mia leaned against Emily's arm, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Emily felt Adrian's gaze then, steady and unreadable. She met it for a heartbeat before looking away. After the meal, the twins bounded off toward the sitting room to work on another secret project, promising to show her when it was done. Emily stayed behind to help stack a few plates for the staff, waiting until the children's voices had faded down the hall. As she passed the butler near the far end of the table, she heard Adrian's voice from just beyond the doorway. Low, casual, but perfectly clear. "She won't last," he was saying. "It's the same as the others. Give it time." The words struck harder than she expected. She froze, her hand still on the plate she was holding. "Sir," the butler replied. "Shall I inform you if there are changes in the twins' behavior?" "Of course," Adrian said, "but I don't expect much. They get attached too easily." Emily's fingers tightened around the edge of the plate. She forced herself to move, setting it down gently to avoid drawing attention. Her pulse was loud in her ears, a mix of hurt and something sharper, determination maybe, or defiance. She didn't wait to hear the rest. Without looking back, she stepped into the hallway, her footsteps quick and quiet on the carpet. In the privacy of her small room, at the far end of the West Wing, Emily leaned against the closed door, breathing slowly. She had known Adrian's trust would be hard to earn. She had known his reputation for cycling through nannies like a revolving door. But hearing him say it so plainly, that she was just like the others, that it was only a matter of time before she left, felt like a dismissal before the trial was even over. For a moment, she thought about packing her things. She imagined walking away before she had to watch the twins' faces when they learned she'd gone. But then she remembered Mia leaning on her arm at dinner. She remembered Mac's grin when he handed her the drawing. She wasn't here for Adrian Hawthorne's approval. She was here for them. Her jaw set, she crossed to the small desk near the window and sat down. In her notebook, she began sketching ideas for the twins. Games, lessons, little adventures they could do together without breaking too many rules. If Adrian wanted to believe she wouldn't laugh, fine, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of being right. And starting tomorrow, she would make sure her focus stayed exactly where it belonged, on Max and Mia, and nowhere else. The next morning arrived with a brightness that felt almost at odds with the quiet pinch beneath Emily's ribs. She carried it like a folded note in her pocket and got on with the work. The twins met her at the stairs barefoot, hair wild, already arguing over whose turn it was to feed the fish. She turned the moment into a race to the tank, found its they sprinted, and the day found its. She kept her promise to herself. With the children, she was pure attention, sparing, warm, present. With Adrian, she became careful space, courteous and contained. She relieved schedules through Mrs. Langford, sent progress notes through the tutor, and answered him with clean facts when he asked for them. Thank you, yes, understood. Nothing more. The twins noticed only that she was everywhere they needed her to be. She drew them a map of the house with hidden circles where stories could happen. The sunroom after piano, the garden steps before dinner, the alcove near the library when storms gathered. They colored the map together, and Mia taped it inside the playroom door, like a secret the walls agreed to keep. Adrian appeared only briefly. He stood in the hall while the tutor explained a new strategy for reading comprehension and nodded at the right moments. Emily's posture never shifted toward him. She kept her gaze on the children and the clock, then excused herself to set up the drawing table for later. If he noticed the frost, he didn't say. By evening, the twins had finished a second drawing. The same garden scene, but this time the sky was streaked with orange, and there were 4 kites. On the back, Mia printed a single sentence in careful block letters. People who stay can fly. Max added a crooked arrow pointing to the tallest kite with the word Dad. Emily said nothing about the night before. She praised the kites, dated the paper, and slid it into a folder labeled Keepers. At bath time, she set boats afloat and told them a story about a captain who learned that the safest harbor was the one with laughter on the dock. The captain had twins, of course. Later, as she dried their hair, Max asked the question without looking at her. Do grown-ups say things they don't mean when other grown-ups are listening? Sometimes, Emily said. Sometimes they're scared to meet them. Are you going to stay? Mia whispered. Here today, Emily answered gently. Tomorrow we'll make more room for yes. Had their agreement now. That night she passed Adrian in the corridor. He slowed, as if expecting conversation, then seemed to think better of it. Good evening, he offered. Good evening, she returned, polite as a closed book. 2 days made a pattern. The twins grew sunnier by inches. Mrs. Langford began leaving small bowls of cut fruit on the counter with a note that read, "For explorers." The tutor's comments kept using the same word, engaged. When Adrian signed the end-of-week summary, his pen hesitated a fraction over the line, then moved on. On Friday afternoon, the children unveiled their secret project from dinner night. They led Emily to the sitting room, pulled back the throw blanket over the couch, and revealed a cardboard contraption of tubes, strings, and paper pulleys. It's a message machine, Max declared, so people can say things without saying them. Does it work? Emily asked, delighted. Dia fed a slip into the top tube. It rattled through the maze, slid out a lower opening, and landed in Emily's palm. The note read, "Thank you for the fire day. We didn't feel lost." Emily's eyes warmed. Then the machine worked. They insisted on demonstrating 3 more times. Each note was different. You make the rules feel softer. Stories make homework faster. It's easier to breathe. She tucked them into the keeper's folder with quiet ceremony. In the doorway, Adrian watched unnoticed. He had come intending to ask about Monday's schedule, then stopped when he saw the machine, the way the children's faces shone toward Emily. The scene filled Hank and pinched him at once. Proof of success, proof of distance. He cleared his throat. Too late, the twins had already heard and turned. How long? Dad, look, Max shouted. It's Truth. Who's there? Tracy said, pointing. Adrian stepped closer. So it does. Mia pushed a blank through for him. Right one. He glanced at Emily. She kept her hands at her sides, gentle and neutral. After a breath, he wrote 3 words and fed them into the tube. The slip clattered out. Mia snatched it and read aloud. I was wrong. Silence pressed in, then loosened. Max grinned. About what? Adrian folded his hands. About how long good things last. No one moved for a few seconds. Then Emily nodded once, a small acceptance that neither invited nor rejected anything more. Snack time, she said lightly, breaking the spell. The children whooped and ran for the kitchen. That evening, the butler found Emily sorting art supplies in the playroom. Mr. Hawthorne asked whether the children might prefer an early dinner on the terrace tomorrow. We'll like that, she said. Weather permitting? Very good. The butler paused, then added almost kindly, it is not common for him to ask. She was careful with the gratitude that rose in her. Thank you for telling me. Saturday brought a breeze and a sky washed clean. The terrace table held simple food, grilled chicken, sliced peaches, little rolls. The twins swung their feet and competed to name cloud shapes. Adrian tried, failed, and laughed, which astonished them into louder laughter. When the meal ended, Max tugged Emily's sleeve. Can we fly the kites from the picture? The wind says yes, she replied. They crossed the lawn with bright paper tails streaming behind them. At the first tug of lift, Mia squealed and ran. Max whooped when his kite climbed. Emily steadied lines, guided hands, and stood back as confidence took over. When a gust threatened to pull the string from Mia's grip, another hand closed over it. Adrian's, he didn't say anything, he didn't need to. The line steadied between them. For a thin slice of time, they were simply 4 figures on a green field under an enormous, forgiving sky. That night, after the twins fell asleep, Emily returned the house to quiet. She passed the message machine and, on impulse, fed a blank through. The slip rattled out with room for 3 small words. She considered many, wrote none, and tucked the paper away. On her way back to her room, she heard Adrian in low conversation with the butler near the foyer. She didn't listen. She didn't need new hurt, old doubt, or translated apologies. She had a map of secret circles, a folder of keepers, and 2 children who had gone to bed smiling. She would keep her distance. She would keep showing up. If there was a bridge to be built across the remaining water, it could wait. The twins already knew how to find her, and that was enough. For now, for tomorrow, for as long as Yes kept expanding. And she would. The day began with a sky so clean the kites from last weekend could have taken flight again. Instead, Emily brought out a bag of bright balloons and a length of string, a simple game for the twins after lessons and piano. They would bat the balloons back and forth without letting them touch the grass, counting aloud, switching hands, shouting new rules as they went. It was the kind of chaos that had rules of its own, an invitation to move. Max filled his cheeks and blew until a red balloon squealed into shape. Mia chose yellow and insisted Emily draw a smiley face with a marker. Emily tied the strings to thin bamboo wands and set the boundaries on the lawn. No running near the stone path, no pushing. If you fall, freeze until help comes. The twins agreed, with solemn nods that lasted exactly 3 seconds. The first round exploded into laughter. Max lunged, missed, and rolled in the grass. Mia leapt, tapped the smiley into the air, and chased it with both arms raised. Emily stood between them, moving like a quiet referee, calling out numbers as the balloons skimmed the sunlight. The lawn smelled of fresh clover. Beyond the hedges, the maze held only birdsong. They reached 30 taps without a drop. Max hooped and tried a spin that made his balloon wobble toward the path. He saved it with a desperate smack that sent it drifting back into bounds. Mia clapped, eyes blazing with triumph. She wanted a harder challenge. Emily raised the bar, 2 balloons at once, each child responsible for both, when the other shouted. It went beautifully for almost a minute. "Switch!" Max cried, and Mia darted to cover both the barks, ankles flashing, ribbon bouncing at her ponytail. "Switch!" Mia answered, and Max skittered sideways, tongue between his teeth, focused and fierce. They were learning to share space, to read each other's breath. They were also children, moving fast on grass that hid small divots. The yellow balloon rose, the red dipped, and Mia cut across to save them both. Her foot found the edge of a shallow hole left by last week's garden stakes. Her ankle twisted. She pitched forward. The bamboo wand clacked against the stone. The yellow balloon sailed up and out of reach. Mia hit her knees and palms, a sharp, startled cry snapping the air. Emily was there before the balloon came down. "Freeze," she said gently, already kneeling. "Let me see." Mia's breath came in quick sobs. A smear of dirt streaked one shin. The other showed a bright rash of scraped skin and a tiny thread of blood. Not deep, Emily thought, but raw. Max hovered, eyes wide, fists clenched around his wand. "It stings," Mia gasped. "I know," Emily soothed. "You're okay. Keep breathing." She checked the ankle first. Tender but stable, no alarming swell. She pressed a cool palm above the scrape to ground the child's attention, then tore a clean wipe from the kit in her pocket. "This might tickle, this might annoy. You get to yell about it." Mia gave one fierce yelp as the wipe touched skin, then shuddered. Tears made bright tracks through dust on her cheeks. Emily blew softly on the clean scrape, shielding it from the sun with her hand. "Almost done," she promised. Max crouched beside them, whispering, "You were winning." Mia sniffed, a hiccup of a laugh trapped in the sound. "Bandage time," Emily said. She always carried a few in the pocket of her shorts, printed with tiny stars. She peeled one, sealed it gently across the raw patch, and kissed her fingers before tapping the air near the bandage. "Power up," she said. Mia's mouth trembled into a small smile. The back door opened behind them. Emily didn't turn. She lifted Mia carefully into her lap to test the ankle again. "Wiggle your toes." "Good. Does this hurt more than a 5? Mia thought, sniffed, and said, 3. Adrian's shadow reached them first, then his voice, too sharp for the soft afternoon. "What happened?" Emily looked up. "A scrape," she said. She tripped on a divot. "I've cleaned it. We're okay. A scrape, he repeated, like the word had insulted him. His gaze swept the lawn, found the bamboo wand near the stone path, found the balloons bobbing, found Max's face still pale. His expression hardened. What rule keeps them from the path? Who set these wands by a hazard? I set the boundaries away from the path, Emily answered, keeping her voice level. The wind carried one close. I was right here. You let her fall. Children fall, Emily said, before she could make the sentence softer. That's part of learning their bodies. I was watching. I intervened in seconds. He laughed once, humorless. Seconds? Do you measure care in seconds now? He crouched beside Mia and touched her hair. Sweetheart, are you hurt anywhere else? Mia looked between them, torn. My knee stings, she whispered. I'm okay. It could have been worse, Adrian said flatly, toward Emily, not the child. A head on the stone, a broken wrist. The maze, the list of dangers marched through his tone like soldiers. I agree, Emily said. That's why we set rules and stayed on the grass. That's why I'm always within reach. Within reach, he echoed, glancing at the divot. He stood, anger tightening his shoulders. This is negligence. Max flinched as though the word had a sound. Emily felt it land and forced her own shoulders to stay still. No, she said. This is play. This is what 7 looks like. We prepared, we managed risk, we handled the fall. You handled nothing, Adrian snapped. You exposed them. Look at her knee. Look at him shaking. For what? Balloons. He said the word like a verdict on frivolity. Emily breathed in, slow, so the next words would not burn. For childhood, she said, for practice being brave when things wobble, for learning to fall and get up with someone calm beside you. Your rules keep them safe, but they also keep them small. His eyes flashed. My rules keep them alive. And mine help them live, she said. He stared at her as if the lawn itself had betrayed him. The wind jostled the balloons, bright against the tension. Emily held Mia steady and met the stare without blinking. Max inched closer to his sister until their shoulders touched. The afternoon, which had started as a game of lightness, felt crowded with old fear. Emily could not see, but could feel pressing in. Emily shifted to stand, but Mia clutched her sleeve. We're going inside, Emily murmured. Fireplace, water, new bandage if we need it. Max, collect the balloons. He gathered the strings in a fist and trotted beside them, watching his father as if waiting for permission to keep moving. Adrian followed them to the sitting room. Emily settled Mia on the sofa, propped the ankle, and checked the scrape. The bandage held, the joint flexed without sharp pain. She passed a glass of water to each child and met Adrian's eyes. I'll log the incident and ask the grounds crew to fill the hole, she said evenly. You think paperwork makes this acceptable? He replied. Occupation reveals patterns, Emily answered. We fix hazards, we adjust the game. That's how learning works. We avoid games with risk, he said flatly. We avoid chance altogether. Chance teaches balance, Emily said. You can't practice courage on a couch. And when courage sent her to the hospital, he demanded. Then we take her, she said softly, and she learns we'll be there, and that falling isn't the end of trying. She learned something today. Breathe, cry, be okay. He stared at the scraped knee, the sagging balloons, the quiet determination in Max's jaw. You are not here to teach philosophy. You are here to prevent harm. Preventing harm includes guiding them through small harm, Emily said. The world isn't padded. I try to be the padding when they fall, and then help them stand. His voice cooled. Pack your things. Max jerked. What? His fingers tightened on Emily's sleeve. Please don't, she whispered. Emily's pulse thudded, but her tone stayed calm for the children. I'll give you the schedule and notes, she told Adrian. I'll say goodbye properly, but hear this while I'm still here. Your rules come from love and fear. They protect and they imprison. The twins are asking for room to grow. Do not lecture me, he said. Look what happened under your watch. Mia lifted her chin. I fell, she said. She helped me. That's different. Emily didn't add anything. She let the words sit. Adrian's jaw worked, then set. You'll receive pay through the week. The car will take you in the morning. The twins broke at once. Max dropped the balloon strings and wrapped both arms around Emily's waist. No, he said, not loud, but absolute. Mia slid off the cushion and clung to Emily's side, finally spilling. Emily drew them close, making a little shelter of herself as she had in the storm. I won't leave without a proper goodbye, she said quietly. I'll pack after bedtime. Tonight I'll finish routines and keep things gentle. You can dislike me and still let the evening be kind. Adrian said nothing for a long moment. Do as you wish, he answered at last, and left them with the fire and the cooling tea. The rest of the afternoon moved slower, like time was thick. Emily replaced the bandage, swapped piano for a quiet cartoon, and folded apples into napkins like small presents. In the bath, Mia asked, How do we keep brave if you go? You practice, Emily said. It grows every time. You have each other. And you have breath. By bedtime, the twins insisted she stay on the rug until they slept. She did, one hand on each quilt, listening to their breathing settle. When she stood, the hallway felt longer than usual. In her room, she lifted a small box onto the bed and opened the folder of drawings. The garden, the kites, the message me notes. People who stay can fly. It's easier to breathe. Thank you for the fire date. She pressed her palm to the papers like a promise and began setting aside a few clothes. A knock came. Mrs. Langford stood in the doorway with folded tissue and a face that had lost some of its steel. I'll help in the morning, she said, and I'll see that divot filled at once. That wasn't on you. Thank you, Emily said. Will you make sure they still find their breakfast notes under the jam jar? Of course, the housekeeper said, and left. And Emily wrote 2 notes and slid them into the drawer where small hands always searched for pencils. For Max, you are brave even when your voice is quiet. For Mia, courage is not no tears. It is tears and a next step. She paused, then wrote a third and left it beneath a paperweight on the desk. For Adrian, they need room to practice being okay. You do too. Sleep came in fragments. Before sunrise, she was in the kitchen, putting out plates and folding napkins into the boat shapes the twins called Lucky. They found her there, hair rumpled, cheeks pale but steady. Max anchored himself against her hip without asking. Mia climbed onto a stool and touched the edge of Emily's sleeve, as if confirming it was real. Are you packed? Mia asked, and the tremble in the question almost unstitched Emily's resolve. Not yet, Emily said. First breakfast, then teeth, then socks that don't itch. Routine is a rope you can hold when the river runs fast. They ate in a hush broken by small jokes. The house tried to pretend it was any other morning. Near 9, Adrian entered, careful in that way that meant he had rehearsed sentences. The driver will be ready after school drop-off, he said. Max stepped forward, chin tilting up. She comes back after school, he declared. Adrian's gaze flicked to Mia's bandage, small and stubborn. He looked at Emily and then away, the movement of a man whose certainty had begun to drought. Eat, he said finally, voice rough. When the backpacks were zipped, the twins flung their arms around Emily and held on as if glue had a will. Don't go, Mia said into her coat. I hear you, Emily whispered, and held them until the driver stood waiting too long at the door. She kissed 2 foreheads, watched them climb into the car, and memorized their faces in the window until the vehicle turned down the drive. Only then did she go to her room, lift the box again, and begin to pack for real, hands steady because 2 small hearts needed her to be steady, even now. In the quiet, she folded the map of secret circles the twins had colored and slid it on top. Tomorrow was a question she couldn't answer, but today had hours. She would fill them with order, thread through a seam. The morning after Emily left, the Hawthorne estate felt wrong in ways Adrian couldn't name. The twins moved through breakfast without the usual chatter, their spoons slow in the bowls. Mrs. Langford poured juice without comment, but her gaze slid to the empty chair at the end of the table, as if expecting Emily to appear and announce some small adventure for the day. Adrian drank his coffee and told himself this was for the best. She had been reckless. She had defied the house's rules. She had endangered his daughter. He could list every reason the decision made sense, yet the quiet in the room scraped at him. When the children were at their lessons, Adrian retreated to his study to handle correspondence. A small envelope, folded in half, sat at the corner of his desk. His name wasn't on it, only two in looping, uneven handwriting, Max and Mia. He should have left it for them to find, but curiosity tugged. He slid a finger under the flap and pulled out a sheet of heavy sketch paper. Across the top was a drawing in colored pencil, the twins on a sailboat, grinning, with a banner above them that read, "Next Summer." Beside the boat, Emily had drawn herself holding the rope. The rest of the page was covered in writing. "You are both braver than you know. Every time you try something new, even when it's hard, you grow a little taller inside. Max, keep making rules for your games. Just remember to let Mia make some." Beneath the words were smaller sketches, the three of them building a fort from sofa cushions, planting tulips, flying kites on the lawn, adventures that hadn't happened yet. Adrian sat back, letter in hand, and felt something shift. She hadn't written to defend herself. She hadn't mentioned the argument. She'd left a map of imagined days, as if certain the twins would keep growing toward them, even without her. A shadow filled the doorway. Mrs. Langford cleared her throat. "I see you found it." "She left it for them," Adrian said, setting the paper carefully on the desk. "She left more than that," the housekeeper replied. She stepped in, lowering her voice. "You don't know much about her, do you?" "And know enough," Adrian said, too quickly. "You?" Mrs. Langford's eyes were steady. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 19. Two younger brothers, one barely in school. She worked 2 jobs, finished her degree at night, kept them housed and fed. The fierce protectiveness you call defiance, that's what raised those boys into decent men. Adrian looked down at the sketches again, the careful lines of the children's faces. She never mentioned it. She wouldn't. Not to you, not until she trusted you, and you didn't give her that chance. Her words landed with the same precision Emily's had when she'd accused him of keeping the children small. He thought of the storm night, Emily kneeling in soaked clothes before the fire, of the twins on the lawn, balloons drifting above them, of Mia's voice saying, "That's different." He closed his hand over the letter. Where is she now? Asking didn't take her long. She took the early bus to town, Mrs. Langford said. She mentioned something about the art center on 5th Street. Volunteers paint murals with the kids there. Adrian nodded once, as if making an internal ledger entry, but his pulse had quickened. By the time he reached the garage, his driver was already waiting. 5th Street Art Center, Adrian said, sliding into the seat. It was Saturday, and the streets were busier than usual. When they turned onto 5th, the art center's brick facade came into view, old with vines climbing the corners, but bright panels of painted wood leaning against the walls like shields. Children darted in and out of the wide doors, hands streaked with paint, laughter echoing into the street. Adrian stepped out, scanning the sidewalk. No Emily. Then he saw her, near the side of the building, crouched beside a little boy with a paintbrush. She was wearing jeans splattered with color, her hair twisted into a loose braid. She held the brush with him, guiding his small strokes along the outline of a sunflower. Something in his chest went tight. She looked exactly as she had in the garden, focused, present, the whole world condensed into the small task in front of her. The boy beamed when they finished the petal, and Emily sat back on her heels, smiling in return. Adrian didn't move closer yet. He stood in the shade, the letter to his children burning in his pocket, and realized the quiet in his house wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the absence of her way of filling space, with patience, with warmth, with an unspoken faith that mistakes could be survived. And he had told her to leave. Emily noticed him only when she rose to wash the brushes. Her steps slowed, expression flickering from surprise to caution. She dried her hands on a cloth before coming closer, stopping a safe distance away. "What are you doing here?" she asked, not cold, but not inviting. "I read your letter," Adrian said. "It was for Max and Mia," she replied. "No. It told me more about you than anything you've said to me directly." She crossed her arms, one hip leaning against the railing of the center's steps. That's because I wasn't there to talk about myself. Mrs. Langford told me about your brothers, Adrian continued. Emily's eyes tightened slightly. She shouldn't have. He should have, he said quietly. It explains why you are the way you are with my children. And it makes me realize I was wrong. Emily gave a small, disbelieving shake of her head. This isn't about being right or wrong, Adrian. This is about whether your children can have the kind of childhood that lets them breathe. He took a step closer. You were trying to give them that. I saw risk, you saw growth. I only reacted to fear. Fear makes rules that feel like safety but turn into walls, she said. He nodded once. I've lived inside those walls since their mother died. I thought it was my job to keep them intact at any cost. You thought I was the cost, she finished for him. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. I thought you'd break something I couldn't fix. But I see now, you were fixing things I didn't even know were broken. Emily looked away toward the children painting in the sun. I care about Max and Mia. Enough to fight with you, apparently. They've been asking for you since you left, Adrian said. Max barely spoke this morning. Mia wouldn't eat her toast. Her mouth softened at that, but she didn't answer. He reached into his pocket and unfolded the letter. These adventures you drew for them, will you still help them live them? Emily's gaze flicked to the paper, then to his face. You told me to pack my things? Regret it, Adrian said. I regret it more than I can explain. I came here because I don't want this to be the end. Silence stretched between them, full of what they hadn't said in the house, by the fireplace, on the lawn. The noise of the street faded behind the thump of Adrian's pulse in his ears. Finally, Emily exhaled. If I come back, Adrian, it can't be under the same rules. They need space to get dirty, to make mistakes, to run without looking over their shoulders every 5 seconds. He inclined his head. I'll try. I can't promise I'll stop worrying, but I can promise I'll stop letting it make all the decisions. That almost drew a smile from her. And when they fall? And remember, it's not the end of the world, he said, as long as you're there to help them stand up again. Emily studied him for another moment before glancing back toward the mural wall. The kids here still need me today, but I'll think about it. He accepted that, stepping back so she could return to the work. I'll send the car for you tomorrow, just in case. She gave a small nod and turned away, the braid down her back swinging with the movement. Adrian stayed long enough to watch her kneel beside another child, laughter threading into her voice. When he finally left, the letter was still in his hand, edges softening from the way he kept folding and unfolding it. Back at the house, the twins were waiting by the door, their eyes scanned past him to the driveway. Did you find her? Max asked. Adrian said, she's busy today. Who's she's coming back? Mia pressed. Edward Jordan, Adrian looked at their faces, the hope there, the same hope Emily had drawn in colored pencil on a paper they hadn't seen yet. I think she might, he said, if we give her the right reasons. That night, after the children were in bed, he placed the letter on their pillows, side by side. In the morning, they would find not just her words, but the sketches of adventures still waiting for them. And maybe, Adrian thought as he closed their door, those adventures weren't lost after all. Emily stood at the threshold of the Hawthorne estate once more, her small travel bag in hand. The afternoon sun lit the stone facade in gold, making the house look less like a fortress and more like a home. She hesitated only briefly before stepping forward. The heavy front doors opened to reveal Mrs. Langford, who broke into a rare smile. Welcome back, Miss Rivera, the housekeeper said warmly. Emily returned the smile, nerves humming beneath her calm exterior. Thank you. Before she could take another step, the thud of running feet echoed down the hall. Max appeared first, skidding slightly on the polished floor, his grin wide enough to split his face. You came back? Mia followed close behind, breathless. We knew you would. Emily crouched to greet them, and in an instant, both twins were wrapped around her. She held them close, the familiar scent of their hair and the warmth of their small arms making something settle deep inside her. "I missed you too," she whispered. From the far end of the hall, Adrian approached. His usual crisp suit was replaced by an open-collared shirt and rolled sleeves. There was a hesitance in his stride, as though he wasn't sure how close to come. "Emily," he said, his tone somewhere between formal and personal, "thank you for agreeing to return." She straightened, still keeping a hand on each child's shoulder. "You kept your promise?" "I meant what I said," he replied. "I'll trust your methods. No more shutting down the moment something looks imperfect. They need more than rules, I see that now." Emily gave a small nod. "Good, because I have something planned for them." That afternoon, the garden was transformed. Emily had spent the morning arranging clues, drawing a map on parchment, and hiding small treasures at various points along the hedged paths. The twins stood beside her at the starting point, eyes wide with curiosity as she explained the rules. "This is a treasure hunt," Emily began, holding up the map. "But here's the twist. You can only move forward if you work together. That means no running ahead alone, no solving clues without talking to each other. If you both don't agree on an answer, you can't advance." Max crossed his arms. "But I'm faster than Mia." "I'm better at riddles than you," Mia retorted. Emily grinned. "Exactly why you need each other. Think you can handle that?" The twins exchanged a competitive glance, then nodded in unison. The first clue was tucked under a stone bench near the fountain. It was a riddle about something that guards the garden but never moves. Max guessed a statue. Mia guessed the old oak tree. They argued for a moment before finally agreeing to check the statues first. The correct one, a marble lion, held the second clue beneath its paw. As they moved deeper into the maze, Emily trailed a short distance behind, watching them slowly shift from bickering to strategizing. Max offered Mia a boost to reach a clue hidden in a tree hollow. Mia, in turn, handed him the magnifying glass to read faint letters etched into a stone. Their laughter began to carry through the hedges, warm and unrestrained. Emily caught Adrian watching from the veranda, his hands in his pockets, an unreadable expression on his face. By the time they reached the final challenge, both twins were panting, flushed from the chase. The last clue led them to the central garden arch, where a small chest waited. They lifted the lid together to reveal two gold-painted wooden medallions with their names on them. "You did it," Emily cheered. Max grinned. "We didn't even fight that much." Easy clips. "That's because we needed each other." Emily pointed toward the veranda. "Then I think there's someone who'd like to congratulate you." Without hesitation, the twins sprinted toward their father. Adrian straightened in surprise as Max and Mia barreled into him, both talking at once. "Breathe over there. We found the treasure," Max exclaimed, holding up his medallion. "We worked together," Mia added, beaming. For a moment, Adrian simply stood there, caught off guard by the pure joy in their faces. Then, almost without thinking, he dropped to one knee and gathered them both into his arms. The movement was awkward at first. Physical affection wasn't something he'd practiced much since their mother's death, but the twins melted into the embrace as if it had been waiting for years. "I'm proud of you," Adrian said, the words feeling both foreign and right on his tongue. "Both of you." Emily watched from a few steps away, the sunlight catching in her hair. She saw the way Adrian's shoulders relaxed, the way the twins clung to him, not out of fear, but out of triumph. When Adrian finally stood, the children darted back to Emily to show her their medallions again, before racing off to hide them somewhere safe. Adrian remained where he was, watching them go with a faint smile. Then he turned to her. "It's remarkable," he said quietly. "We just needed a reason to be on the same side," Emily replied. "Gave them that," he said. Emily shrugged lightly. "It wasn't magic, just a little freedom, a little trust, and maybe a bit of fun." Adrian stepped closer, his voice softer now. "I owe you more than an apology, Emily. I owe you my thanks. I can see the difference in them already, and in myself." She searched his face, half expecting a trace of his old guardedness. Instead, she saw something open there, something almost vulnerable. "You kept your promise," she said. "And to keep it," he replied. "This isn't just about letting them play in the garden, it's about letting them live. I forgot how to do that." Emily's gaze flicked toward the path where the twins had disappeared. "They'll remind you, every day, if you let them." He nodded slowly, as if sealing an unspoken pact. "I'd like you to stay, not just as their nanny, as someone who knows how to bring the walls down. Mine included." Her breath caught at that, but before she could answer, the twins returned, tugging at both of them to come see where they'd hidden the treasure. Adrian glanced at her, and for the first time since they met, there was no trace of doubt in his eyes. Emily smiled. "Lead the way, captains." They followed the children down the sun-dappled path, the sound of laughter wrapping around them like a promise that this, finally, was the start of something new. The autumn sun streamed through the glass facade of the new Hawthorne family wing, its golden rays spilling across polished floors and walls painted in warm, inviting colors. Outside, the garden buzzed with activity, parents with children, volunteers setting up tables of refreshments, and a small crowd gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Emily Rivera stood near the entrance, a slim binder in her hands, scanning the program schedule for the day. Her tailored navy dress was simple yet elegant, her hair swept back in a neat twist. A year ago, she could never have imagined herself in this role, program director of a children's center wing that would serve hundreds of families. Yet here she was, watching the vision come to life. Behind her, the familiar sound of running feet made her turn. Max and Mia, now 8 years old, raced toward her, their matching outfits a blend of formal wear and childlike mischief. Crisp white shirts, but slightly crooked ties and untucked hems. "Emily, look what we're in charge of," Mia announced, holding up a shiny pair of scissors almost as long as her forearm. Max grinned. "We get to cut the ribbon with Dad." Emily crouched to their level, her smile wide. "That's a big job. You think you can handle it without cutting anything else?" Max nodded seriously. "I practiced on paper at home." From a few steps away, Adrian approached. He was in a charcoal suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression composed yet softer than the man she'd met a year earlier. "They've been rehearsing all morning," he said, his tone carrying a trace of amusement. Emily stood, meeting his gaze. "You've created something incredible here, Adrian." His eyes swept over the building, the children playing in the garden, and finally landed back on her. "We created it. You've been here every step of the way." The ceremony began, with brief speeches, local officials thanking the Hawthorne family for their generosity, community leaders sharing stories of how the center would change lives. When it was Adrian's turn, he stepped to the microphone, the twins flanking him on either side. "Tweet is dedicated to my late wife, Claire," he began, his voice steady but carrying a quiet weight. "She believed every child deserved a place to feel safe, to grow, and to dream. Today, we honor her vision, and I'd like to thank someone who made this possible, Emily Rivera. She's not just the program director, she's the heart of this project." The audience applauded, and Emily felt heat rise in her cheeks. She glanced toward the twins, who were beaming up at their father. Adrian continued. "When Emily first came into our lives, I didn't realize she was here to teach me as much as she would teach my children. She reminded us that home isn't just a place, it's the people we choose to hold close." He paused, then looked at Max and Mia. "All right, captains, shall we do the honors?" The three of them took the ribbon in hand, the oversized scissors gleaming in the sunlight. With a dramatic snip, the ribbon fell, and the crowd erupted in cheers. But the moment wasn't over. As the applause faded, Max whispered something to Mia, and they both darted away for a moment before returning with a large, gift-wrapped object. They struggled under its weight until Adrian stepped forward to help them carry it onto the stage. "Sealed," Mia announced proudly, "is for you, Dad, and for Emily." Max added, "We made sure it was perfect." Adrian exchanged a puzzled glance with Emily before carefully peeling away the wrapping painting. Beneath it was a framed painting, a vibrant hand-done portrait of the four of them in the garden from the day of the treasure hunt. Emily stood on one side, the twins in the middle, and Adrian on the other, all of them smiling in a way that was natural and unposed. The grass was lush, the sky a swirl of gold and blue, and in the lower corner, painted in delicate lettering, were the words, "Home is where we're together." For a long moment, Adrian didn't speak. His gaze lingered on the image, as if absorbing not just the colors, but the truth behind them. Emily felt her throat tighten, a lump forming she didn't bother to hide. "It's beautiful," Adrian finally said, his voice low. He looked at the twins. "Thank you. This means more than you know." Mia leaned against Emily's side. "It's not just for looking at, it's a promise that we stay like this, all of us." Emily's eyes softened. "I think that's a promise we can keep." The rest of the afternoon was a blur of laughter, conversations, and children exploring their new space. Adrian made a point of introducing Emily as the program director to every guest, his pride in her role evident. She watched the twins dart from one play area to another, their joy unstrained, and felt an ache of gratitude for how far they'd all come. Later, when the crowd had thinned and the sun dipped low, casting a warm amber glow over the garden, Adrian joined her near the fountain. The framed portrait rested on a table beside them, catching the light. "You know," he began quietly, "a year ago, I couldn't imagine this day. I was so focused on rules, on control, I didn't realize what I was keeping out." Emily met his gaze. "You let them in, that's what matters." "He let you in," he corrected gently, "and I'm glad I did." The air between them carried the kind of understanding that didn't need to be spoken aloud. They had gone from strangers to something deeper, not bound by contracts or titles, but by choice. From across the garden, Max and Mia called for them to join in one last game before heading home. Adrian smiled faintly and extended his hand to Emily. She hesitated, only for a heartbeat before placing hers in his. Together they walked toward the twins, the sound of their laughter blending with the rustle of autumn leaves, the music of a family finally whole.